So, welcome back, everyone. I'm glad to see you all after break. Hope that that went well for you all. And let's get started on Mechatronics for the spring. So, today is not going to be a crazy long meeting. In fact, there's a possibility that we'll just end early and you guys can go. If you guys want to stick around and talk with your groups, that might make sense. We're going to really hit the ground running next week, but this meeting is really to kind of set up the semester from an administrative standpoint, let you guys know what the plans are, and then you guys can work within your groups and make plans as you see fit for on the team level. So the meeting schedule for the semester. So this is the first thing. Obviously, it doesn't apply to this week because we're after all of these times, except for the last hour on the Wednesday meetings. But this is going to start next week. So we're meeting Mondays 8 to 9 and then Wednesdays 7 to 9. So I do want to talk about why we're making this change a little bit and what the plan is for each of the meetings. First of all, the Wednesday meeting shifted from 8 to 10. There were 8 to 10, and obviously that's why this meeting's 8 to 10, to 7 to 9 instead, mainly because that's kind of the direction the club's going. Traditionally, Arrow and U has 2 main meeting slots on each individual day. It would be 6 to 8 and then 8 to 10. The problem is no one ever wanted to do the 6 to 8 slot because people on co-op can't do 6 o'clock sometimes. So that made a huge demand for the 8 to 10 slots. And as we're pushing to do more in-person stuff this semester, it started to become more and more of a problem because the lab only has limited capacity. So we made the decision to shift instead to 7 to 9 slots and 9 to 11 slots as a club. And as a result of that, more people could do both slots. So we've elected to go with the 7 to 9 slot of the 2. So yeah, that's the justification there. And then we added Monday meetings 8 to 9. So as you notice, those are only an hour. So yeah, I'll start going over that now. So that meeting is going to be remote every week with probably no exceptions. If someone's in a super crunch week for build, there's a possibility that we could try to get a tent, but that would be a very case-by-case basis and should not be the expectation for happening much at all. The plan during that meeting is to start with presentations if we have them. In the fall, we pretty much did a presentation every week. As you guys know, with the exception of the tail end, that's not going to be the case this semester. Beginning of the semester, there might be a couple. I know there's an additive manufacturing and manufacturing methods presentation or presentations, depending on how I end up doing it. We might do it in 1 or 2 weeks. I'm not sure yet. And then there might be 1 or 2 other topics that kind of pop up throughout the semester, but the plan is not to do that every week. That was some feedback you guys gave to me, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It was important to get you guys that information in the beginning of the track last semester, but at this point, you guys need time to work, and I am going to give you that. And then the rest of that time after we've done the presentation, if there is one, will just be announcements from us for the track. And then time for you guys to do planning, purchasing, calculations, anything that can kind of be done remotely. It's more of like an administrative and prep meeting for you and your team with your mentor, and kind of working on any issues or roadblocks that we can address. And then Wednesdays, the main difference is the fact that this semester we will actually be having an in-person meeting every week. Which is something I'm super excited about. That is the main and biggest piece of feedback that you guys gave me, which is that you'd really like to see in-person meetings. That makes a lot of sense because it's kind of hard to be mechanical engineers and build stuff and test stuff and prototype stuff when you can't meet in person or get to any tools. Unfortunately, that was pretty out of my hands last semester, and I had a very limited ability to do anything about that. But this semester, some things have been manipulated, and we've been able to get permissions and whatnot. We've worked with the club as well as intro leadership in general to kind of make this happen. So I'm really excited that we have the opportunity to offer this to you guys. So you'll notice that I said both white tents or Arrow and U Lab. So that's going to depend on your group on a week-by-week basis. So everyone's going to be in one of those 2 locations is the plan. The Aero and U Lab has a capacity of 8 right now. Normally we have a lot more than 8 people in there, but due to COVID restrictions, we're limited to 8. And one of those people has to be a TA, which means 7. And then the white tents, we can reserve them, but we can only reserve them for up to 10 people. So obviously neither of those places can house the whole track, but by splitting the track, by some groups go in the lab, some groups go in a tent on any given week, we'll be able to have everyone in person. Who is in the lab will be decided beforehand. There's going to be a discussion between you guys and your mentors, and then your mentors with me about who needs lab time more than others. Just so you guys do know, we do have a basic set of tools that we'll be bringing to the tents for you guys to work with. We're not going to pretend that it's as good as what the lab has. It's not. That's the reality of the situation. The lab's stocked with a bunch of tools, some hand tools that are just too many in quantity to bring with us, and then obviously also has like laser cutter, 3D printer, and some other equipment as well that obviously we're not bringing that to a white tent. So we're just going to have to cooperate and discuss and figure out who needs that equipment the most at each individual time, and we'll play it by ear. If for some reason one group or several groups really need the lab and we can't get in there all at the same time, we'll figure out a way to get your stuff made. I can go in during the day and laser cut your parts or something. We'll make it happen. So yeah, those meetings will be purely working meetings. We have no plans to do administrative stuff at all. In fact, there's not going to be a group call-in for that. If any of you or any of your group members are remote for an individual meeting or in general or anything like that, it will be kind of up to you and your mentor, you guys and your mentor, to have a laptop set up with a call open for that, so that you can still involve that person who's remote, be it that they're in quarantine housing or isolation or just at home or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's why the Monday meetings are especially important, because when we do have those 2 hours a week to meet in person with tools and space, which is really hard to come by right now, we need to make sure that we're making the most of that time. So if there's any planning or figuring out how you guys are going to actually spend that meeting, please do it on Monday, or at the very least before you come on Wednesday, because I don't want people coming on Wednesday and showing up to like a table or a tent or the lab and being like, I don't know what I'm going to do now, because we are on a time crunch. So yeah, so that is the plan for the semester. I know that because Mondays weren't a day that we were meeting before, there's a possibility that some of you guys won't be able to make it at that time. If there's any specific problems with that, feel free to send me a PM and I can see if I can help you guys out in some way. Those meetings, anything that would have been recorded in the fall will be recorded again and put on YouTube, so you can definitely catch up there. And we have our team chats for you guys in Discord to discuss with your team as well. So, you know, maybe we'll have to make use of that. But it was pretty much the best that we could come up with that fit our needs. All right, so semester schedule. So the plan for January, which is already more than half over at this point, is just kind of getting back up to speed, having you guys discuss PDR feedback, and just kind of prep for the semester, kind of getting back into the groove. February is going to be design heavy and prototype heavy. And at the very end of February or the beginning of March, still TBD, we're probably going to have a CDR. CDR, for those of you who remember, is critical design review. And at this point, you should really have a good plan for what you want to do. You shouldn't be really still deciding between mechanisms. You don't have to have everything 100% designed, but you should have a pretty good idea of what things are going to look like, have, you know, a pretty decent CAD model, have some prototypes tested and some stuff validated. In March, we're going to be doing final fabrication, assembly, and testing. So by the end of March, you should really expect to have something that's pretty close to what you're going to be trying to fly. And then in April is final testing, final tweaks, FRR, which is flight readiness review. So before you actually put anything in a rocket, we're going to have a team of people look at it to make sure that it's safe and not going to blow up or anything like that. And then we're actually planning on having the launch day itself. This stuff is like, there's an asterisk next to all of it. with the fact that anything could potentially change. We don't know. Um, you know, COVID restrictions changing, or I really hope not, because that would be very difficult if we had to stop meeting in person. But we'll see what we can do. But this is the plan as of now. Budgets. So I've been really vague with you guys about budgets. So I have some good, actually mostly good news, I think, for budgets. I think that this should help you guys out a bunch. So before, I know that we had 4 categories for budget. We had prototyping, pre-purchase components, where you were like buying stuff from a list of things that we'd already bought, custom components, and then the projectile budget. We've actually axed those first 3 and kept just the projectile budget and the everything else budget. And then we also raised the amount that you guys are going to have. The main reason for this is that the mentors kind of discussed over the break, and we realized that a lot of this stuff, while good in theory and in a project where we had more time and less COVID restrictions, could have been kind of unique challenges and forced you guys to kind of think outside the box in some ways. Ultimately, we're probably going to be unnecessary roadblocks and constraints. And the last thing we need to do right now is give you guys additional constraints, because you already have been in a difficult situation with the COVID restrictions. So we wanted to open that up. So the projectile budget is staying the same, $20. But then for anything you want to do for prototyping, and then anything you actually want to put on the actual system itself, we're giving you guys $450 to spend, which is more. We were planning on that being, I believe it was between like 300 and 350 is what we 300 and 350 is what we told you guys before. So it's an additional like 100 to 150 on top of what the original plan was, which hopefully should help. And just a quick reminder, batteries, electronics boards, wires, 3D printer filament, if you need wood for prototyping, all that stuff doesn't count in this budget. This is stuff, and some like hardware and stuff like that. We have all that in the lab already. So this money is really being spent on other stuff that's more specific to your system. If you needed like a bunch of fiberglass stock randomly, maybe you'd need to buy some of that. Some of the more expensive stock possibly, but for anything relatively basic and that the club uses all the time, we have some stuff for you guys to use. In terms of when you can spend money, you can't do it quite yet. Actually, the plan is tonight, probably right now. I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing right now. Shayla and Ryan, Shayla being the intro lead and overall lead, and Ryan being the VP of the club, are meeting with Andrew Goldstone, our club advisor, and discussing with him what we got done in the fall, not just Mechatronics, but all of the tracks, and then asking him if he would be so kind as to give us more money in the fall or in the spring. If he does not, or if he doesn't have the funding for that, the club will fund us, at least mostly. And so, but right now it's not exactly clear where the money that you guys will be spending is coming from, which bucket basically within the university. So we're not allowed to actually spend it yet until that's figured out. But once we figure out those details, we will be all set to go. In terms of the actual spending process itself, I know that we didn't really do that at all in the fall. Basically how that's going to go is you're going to let your mentor know that you want to buy something. You're going to put it in a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet doesn't exist yet, but it will soon, probably before Monday. I'll send that out to you guys. It will be on a team by team basis, and you'll put like the item, the link to it, the unit cost, the quantity, that sort of thing. Nothing crazy. Probably like roughly what it's being used for, just so that it like we understand what you're buying and why. And then either your mentor or I will end up actually buying it, simply due to the fact that the reimbursement process is annoying, and I'm going to try to not subject you guys to that. So yeah, that will be the process. And when we actually get approval and all that, I will let you guys know and give you guys more details on how we're handling this.